Welcome, everyone. Indie Reads Aloud coming at you once again. This is so much fun. We're doing a really special thing tonight. I have one of my all-time favorite authors coming on, and he's reading for one of his favorite authors, which is very, very exciting. Tonight, Mark Love is reading from Tammy Mannersly's book called Drawn to Him. And this is a romance. Mark, thanks for coming back and supporting other authors so well.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Diana. You and I always have such a good time when we get together.
We do. And it's nice that you're introducing me to an author that I otherwise wouldn't know about. So I really appreciate that.
Well, this is such a delight for me because Tammy Mannersly and I are both part of the Inkspell Publishing family.
Hmm.
And I've read a number of her stories over the years. And I keep encouraging her, you need to come and visit with Diana. And when I say I'm encouraging her, it's all through emails because Tammy lives in Australia.
Yeah, so 14 hours.
Yeah.
So
And
that makes good sense that you're reading for her because
yeah,
she's asleep right now.
she probably is, and I think she's just a little bit shy.
Okay,
So
too.
when trying to encourage her, and she would just kind of, give me a giggle and a blush, and I thought, and I suggested, what if I were to read some scenes for you
Hmm.
with Diana? And she got all excited about that idea, and was reading this particular story, Drawn to Him, and I have to admit, it was difficult to pick a couple of scenes because the whole story is so good. And when I asked Tammy for some suggestions or guidance, basically the response I got was, well, you're a veteran at doing this stuff. I trust you.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice that she trusts me. Is not the answer I was hoping for, but it's good.
Well,
It's
I'm
good.
really glad that you're willing to do this because I want to encourage other authors to do the same for their author friends. You know, sometimes it's difficult for authors to promote their own work. We're always so self-conscious about what we write. And sometimes it really helps to have somebody else in your corner and say, you know what? I believe in you. Let me read for you so that I can show the world how spectacular you are. Now, we talked about this in the green room. I could never read your work aloud because I have too many favorite parts and I would end up reading the entire book. So
Well,
I
that
understand
would
the
be fine.
difficulty in choosing. But I do want to take this moment to invite any authors who are listening to the program that if you do feel a little apprehensive about reading your own work aloud, engage one of your friends to read for you. They don't necessarily have to be an author themselves. They can just be a fan comfortable with being in a public forum like this. I am very happy to invite anybody who would like to read aloud, children and adults. So anybody who wants to try this, contact me, sign up on the website, and we'll expose even more amazing books to the world.
And for those that are considering this, I will tell you, I always have such a great time with Diana. She makes this so easy. It's just like we're sitting over a cup of coffee and having a conversation, or cocoa, having a conversation,
I do
and just
appreciate that.
joking back and forth.
I do appreciate that. It is a lot of fun to play with you on this program. We have such a good time together. So I am super excited. I have not read Drawn to Him yet because you just introduced me to this book and to Tammy Mannersly. I'm sorry. She is an award-winning Australian author, frequently praised for her heartwarming stories full of romance, dedicated friendships, and stunning Australian locations. All her books ensure a great happily ever after and a love story that will sweep you off your feet. Tammy has a bachelor's degree in creative industries, majoring in creative writing from Queensland University of Technology. And she lives on the coast near Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, and loves to write about her favorite Australian destinations. And for those of you who have not yet heard from Mark, you're just discovering him today. He's lived for many years in the metropolitan, see, my words aren't working tonight, metropolitan Detroit area, where crime and corruption are always prevalent. As a former freelance reporter, Mark honed his writing skills covering features and hard news. He is the author of the Jamie Richmond Romance Mysteries, the Jefferson Chene Mystery series, and tons of other great short stories. And he has contributed to anthologies as well. Mark now resides in West Michigan, where he enjoys a wide variety of music, books, travel, cooking, and the great outdoors. He has two amazing children and two amazing grandchildren and a very supportive, indulgent, beautiful wife. And I'm so happy you're back again. I
Thank you so much, Diana. That's quite the intro there. So,
wow.
it's a global introduction. You got Tammy from Australia, you got me from Michigan, and we're having fun.
We're having a good time. So I'm
Indeed.
really excited to hear you read. I know that you've picked some of your favorite selections. So as we've done with your episodes, I'm just going to turn everything over to you and let you read. So when you're ready, please take the microphone and read aloud.
Very good. Thank you, Diana. All right, here we go. This is from Drawn to Him. Now, the story centers around two characters. Erica, who is a lovely young lady who owns an art boutique, and she also teaches a number of different art classes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I forgot to mention, and I do want to put this up at the beginning. There is a listener advisory for some mature situations in this book. So if you have little ears in the room, this might be a good time to sequester them elsewhere. So I almost forgot that because I'm so excited to hear from this new book. This is me reverting to being 6 years old again. So please go ahead, Mark.
Not a problem. All right. So Erica is in her shop one day and she gets injured and she is taken to the local doctor's office. This is where she has the first interaction with the handsome new doctor that just recently came to town, and his name is Matt. Closing the door to his office had never felt so final, never given him such a feeling of intimacy as it did now. Matt was all alone with the most alluring woman he had ever met. No matter how macho he liked to pretend he was, how suave he tried to remind himself he could be, nerves were still getting the best of him. Do you want me on the table? Matt spun around, his voice catching in his throat. Pardon? Is it easier for you to check my knee if I sit on the examination table? He released a deep breath. Good idea. Yeah, yes, thank you. Erica gave him a quizzical look, but went to the back of the room. As her hips swayed, Matt caught himself staring at her ass, then quickly forced his gaze upward when she turned around. He continued to watch while she did a little jump to position herself on the table, admiring how her generous bust jiggled with the movement. God, he was going to. How did you hurt yourself? Oh, Erica glanced down at her knee, stretching the tan skin around it as though trying to get a better look at the damage. A really big canvas knew my weakness. Matt retrieved a packet of alcohol-free wipes and a bottle of saline solution. And what's that? I'm a bit of a klutz. He chuckled, snatching a new pair of sterile green gloves. So, I need to handcuff you to the table so that you don't fall off. Erica smirked at him, and something sparkled in her fascinating eyes. Matt froze, his breath caught sharply. Yet, he'd said handcuff. He meant to say strap. Geez, that wasn't much better. Talk about a Freudian slip. He cleared his throat and continued over to her. Sorry, terrible joke. Her grin widened as she chuckled at him. I thought I was supposed to be the nervous one. Matt shook his head. Would it be so wrong of him to wrap his hands around her waist and drag her down to his lap? Feel the softness of her curves against his body. To kiss her until the only pain she felt was the ardent hunger the suffocating desire to screw his brains out? A giant yes thunderclap from God echoed head. Yes, it's wrong. He tried to focus. So, the life drawing classes, would you recommend them? Matt wanted to slap himself on the forehead. What a ridiculous question. He fought the urge to leave the room before he made an even larger fool of himself. Erica was just smiling at him, that devilish, sultry grin that made him wish they were both naked. You're not keen to find your miss right, then? Her teasing tone enticed Matt's gaze up, and he found himself stuck, captured by her mesmerizing eyes. We do have some lovely young ladies who attend. Some of them even pose for the class. Are you sure I can't tempt you? Her words rang in his ears. Are you sure I can't tempt you? Was she flirting with him? God, he hoped so. You're not ready then? Not ready to settle down? Erica asked. How could he answer that? I wasn't ready 15 minutes ago, and I met you, and now I just might be. Yeah, that would go down well. What in the world was wrong with him? Sorry, I'm not usually so nosy, Eric said. He looked up at her, but she was still watching his hands, his thumb smoothing the bandage over her skin. It's okay, really. Her brown eyes met his. Thanks. Yes, I hoped you might be a kindred spirit, someone else who wasn't so caught up in the hype of true love, searching for a partner, perfect marriage to complete them. I've dated a fair share of toads, and never once did I stumble across a Prince Charming. That's sort of why I came here. I decided to choose my passion over, she giggled, well, another kind of passion. The warmness of her smile had him mirroring it. Sounds like we had a similar experience in the dating pool. Only my toadettes weren't the main reason I left Brisbane behind. I needed a change of scenery, a change of pace. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy yourself, though. Come to the life drawing class. I promise I won't introduce you to anyone if you don't want me to. But I think I'd kind of like your company. I'd love to. His heart swelled. She just asked him out. Maybe not in so many words. Surely this invitation is the next best thing. Surprise widened her eyes for an instant. Great. Our next class is at 7 o'clock on Friday night. With his heart now beating out a bongo rhythm, Matt took a calming breath. He gazed down at the neat dressing he'd finished applying to her injury and cleared his throat. You're all good to go. It took a moment for him to shake the incredible daydream that held him captivated. Soon as he started to stand, he hoped, God, he even prayed, he might just fulfill his fantasy. Her smooth, long legs wrapping over him, straddling him as her lips found his. Matt stood up abruptly, putting himself uncomfortably, rather too comfortably, close to Erica. When their eyes met, his lips twisted in a nervous smile. Her pupils widened, and she breathed deeply, her ample chest thrusting out to meet his. Matt knew he should move. His body tingled with the need to fight off this awkwardness, to either pull her into his arms and embrace her, or get out of the damn way. But, as usual, he froze. Another inhale brought her even closer, her lips one final breath away. His skin prickled with a sensual electricity as he struggled to make the right decision. Did he take the risk or back away and hope for another opportunity? Was she caught by the same force he was? same sexual attraction and instinctive chemistry? Or were his delusions melding into reality? Then it happened. That final breath, her lips snuck closer, brushing his, leaving a scalding spark, a stirring burn where they briefly, barely touched his skin, and then they were gone. Matt wasn't exactly sure when he closed his eyes, but when he'd opened them again, Erica had disappeared. All right, that seemed like a good spot to end the first scene. I have a second one for you. This is the night of the life drawing class. And when the model that was scheduled calls off sick on very short notice, Erica is forced to don the costume and pose for the class. Now, the costume included a corset, very sheer robe. Right. The class is over, and the students have departed. Erica alone. Just a minute, Erica called as the knocking at the front door continued. She had nearly gotten her pants on. She slid the denim shorts over her hips and pushed aside the crimson curtain, hurrying through the classroom as she zipped and buttoned the shorts in place. Had no idea who it could have been, especially at this time of night. But since the life drawing class had finished half an hour ago, common sense suggested that someone had returned to collect something they'd accidentally left behind. Self-consciousness had Erica draping an arm over her chest in an effort to hide the copious amounts of cleavage created by the corset. When she'd sent Celie, her best friend, home earlier, she hadn't had the foresight to realize just how difficult it would be to free herself from this evil contraption. She'd already spent a great deal of time tugging at it, pulling at the laces, but only succeeded in knotting it up tighter. Worst came to worst, she would end up sleeping in the damn thing. It off. She used her thumb to snap open the lock and pull the door inward. Yes, she was a little breathless, flustered by her rush to answer the late call. Erica glanced up, following the mass of masculine chest beneath the soft fabric of a gray business shirt, to a neat collar revealing a strong neck. There was a square jaw, slightly lopsided by a satisfied smile, on full lips, and a straight nose, before an attractive pair of friendly hazel eyes caught her stare. Eyes that seemed to beam at her, their irises churning with flecks of gold, emerald, and chocolate, turning molten as they looked down, taking in her appearance. I told you I'd come back. Matt's deep voice was husky, though burdened, struggling for control. He gasped in surprise. I didn't realize you meant tonight. I assumed you had other things planned. Matt shook his head. No, no plans except these. His gaze rose to hers. The desire she saw there, the lust that had those handsome eyes darkening, tugged at something deep in her gut, at the core of her being. He took a step toward her, over the threshold, and she stepped back, releasing the door to him, inviting him in with a nonverbal gesture. You are so incredibly gorgeous. He exhaled the words as though he couldn't restrain their release. She laughed sharply. It's the makeup. Matt shook his head again, closed the door behind him. Wanted to help you clean up. Maybe we could talk as we did so. I He paused, his brow furrowing. I'd really like to get to know you better. For an instant, Erica had imagined he'd come back, his body seeking hers, searching to fulfill that desperate need their unique attraction had sparked. She'd known Celie was right. Matt wanted her just as much as Erica wanted him. That didn't mean they had to do anything about it. Besides the fact that they wanted different things, they were at different stages in their lives. Him possibly wanting to settle down, her needing to focus on herself and her career. They were also adults, after all, and they could keep their minds in control of their bodies. Sure, Erica's heart jumped to her throat. I'd love to get to know you better, too. She turned, walking back toward the classroom, sensing the heat of his body, his nearness, following close behind her. I plan to leave this until morning, she continued, gesturing toward the mess left over from the class. But if you're certain you'd like to help, then I'd really appreciate it. Of course, you shouldn't have to do all this by yourself. Erica shrugged, hand on her shoulder bobbing with the movement, shifting the arm covering the expanse of bare cleavage just a little. The motion made her once more aware of her indecency, and she became determined to escape the confines of this snug torture device. I usually do, but it's not normally so busy. He snatched a pair of scissors from a workbench along the wall and turned back to face Matt. Celie offered to stay, but I sent her home. That was before I realized how difficult it would be to get out of this thing. He pointed the scissors at the corset, her cheeks blushing with heat as Matt's eyes followed the movement. If you give me a second, Erica explained, cut myself out and finish getting changed. She gestured again to the corset and then to the crimson fabric of the curtain which shielded the changing area. As she turned to do just that, Matt planted his large hand on her shoulder, halting her retreat, forcing her to glance back. You shouldn't have to destroy something so lovely, Matt. Maybe I could help you unlace it. The giggle that left Erica's lips was a little too high-pitched for her liking. She swallowed deeply, trying to consume the huge, thick ball of nerves that had clumped itself at the back of her throat. That's a pickup line I haven't heard before. Matt's kind eyes widened innocently, and he snatched his hand from her arm. Sorry, I really hadn't meant it that way. He shook his head as though mentally correcting his thoughts. You're just so stunning. I mean, it is. I just hoped I could save it, stop you attacking it with scissors by offering to help you out of it. As he scrambled to find the right words, Erica laughed. So basically, you're offering to help me out of my underwear. Matt's breath caught, and his handsome, angular cheekbones warmed with obvious embarrassment. Well, his attention dropped to her ample cleavage, as though immediately realizing her nudity beneath the troublesome clothing. I guess, if you put it that way, sort of. When she laughed again, he joined her. Look, I can't think of anything I want more at this moment than to be rid of this thing. So if you want to take a shot at untying the mess I've made, be my guest. Erica handed him the scissors. Matt smirked at her, his eyes sparkling with amusement. We won't be needing these, placing them safely on a nearby table. Her gaze darkened in challenge, and she turned her back to him. Ignoring the ache deep in her gut, pleasurable throb that seemed to be mounting as each millisecond passed. Erica inhaled deeply and waited for him to begin. She felt his touch through the silky fabric, light at first, before a gentle tugging began. Then the soft slap of a rogue lace hitting her shoulder blade, sliding down her back, had goosebumps bubbling over her skin. She could feel the warmth of his body so near to hers, smell the spicy heat of his skin, hear his breathing, ragged like hers, tried desperately to focus on his task. The gentle tugging continued. Her body suddenly pulled back towards his, the movement out of her control before the tightness of his hold released her once more. Again and again he pulled her to him, her body inching closer to his each time, and then his grip would loosen. It seemed so sensual, the thrusting movement, back and forth, and yet he hadn't even touched her, not skin to skin. His fingers stuck chastely to their innocent task, untying the lace, loosening the bind of the boned corset without dithering. Erica struggled against the heady lust that was intoxicating. As the material of the corset gaped slightly, she held it up over her breast, trying to ensure that she remained modest, even though all of her instincts were willing her not to. Matt pulled her toward him one final time, and then the corset hung around her, loose enough that she had not been holding it, would have dropped over her hips. That should do it. Matt's voice was hoarse, croaky, even though it held a lilt of triumph. Erica sighed loudly, knowing the relief she felt was evident in the noise. She was so grateful to be finally on the verge of freedom from this constructed piece of clothing and of the strangely intimate interaction. It wasn't as though she hadn't enjoyed the encounter. It was because she relished it too much that she'd been worried. Her willpower, although minimal to begin with, had all but completely dissolved throughout the deal. And had not had Matt not then announced the completion of his task, she might have let her desire override sense. Thanks. She risked a glimpse over her shoulder at him. Believe it or not, I was starting to feel claustrophobic. Matt released a tense chuckle. Understandably. He took a step back from her, moving his hand to the edge of the crimson curtain beside them. I'll wait for you to get changed. Again, she felt a surge of relief, but this time it was mixed with a sharp twinge of disappointment, painful wrenching in her heart, and much deeper, that held her frozen for an instant.
Do we get
You
more?
gotta read the book.
Ugh. Well, that's right. While you were reading, I put it on my TBR. So thank you very
Good.
much.
You're
Again,
very welcome.
that was Drawn to Him, and that was written by Tammy Mannersly and read for us today by Mark Love. Mark, I got to ask you, as a reader, what was it that drew you most to this story? What was the thing that really stuck with you as you went through this book chapter by chapter?
Well, Tammy does a wonderful job with her characters, and they're very realistic. I mean, Erica has been focused on her business and her own career goals. Matt's the same way. He's a doctor. He's moved into this area, and he's not looking for a wife. He's not looking for any. He just wants to, get his practice
Sure.
running and focus on that and his career. And they both are very strong characters, very independent. But there's this chemistry. There's this combustion that's going to go on here, and there's such a wonderful draw of drawing people into the story, and some of the other characters as well. They're just very well done, and there's great dialogue and the tension that's going on there. I started reading this, and I thought I'm just going to read a few pages,
Yeah.
and I'll see how it goes. And I looked up, and it's like an hour and a half later, and I'm about halfway through it. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute,
Wow,
what?
that's great.
And then I had to go back after I finished it to try and figure out which scenes would be good to read for this.
Yeah.
And I was having such a difficult time.
Yeah,
And
it sounds like it would be a huge challenge to go through and just pick out two scenes to read.
I printed out 50 pages.
Oh my goodness.
And I kept at first I was like, I'll just read this. I'm like, well, this is like 3 hours, dude. It's not gonna work. I got back and forth. So there are in the first one, it's a little choppy in some spots, and my apologies, Tammy, and to the audience, but that was the best way that I could try and get that so that you would see some of the spark that's starting there with these
Yeah,
two
yeah.
characters and
It didn't feel too unlike Jamie and Malone. There's some of that same kind of romantic tension between these characters, and I really enjoyed the way Tammy threw in a little of that realistic momentary lapse of function for people. Sometimes when we get into that moment of twitterpation with somebody we've just met, our brains don't necessarily process correctly. And
yes.
as you were reading, I really enjoyed how she put that on the page. That was really fun for me
Oh,
to listen to the story. So I have definitely added it to my TBR.
as I said, she does a wonderful job with her characters, with the situations that they're in, and there's a little intrigue that's going on outside of their romance here. There's some
Mhm.
activities that's going on that's trying to prevent them from being together,
Oh, even more fun.
and
Mark,
that
thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you
oh,
for introducing me to another amazing author. You do this every time we get together. You're always suggesting stories, and I really appreciate it.
well, it's my pleasure, Diana, and I'm always happy to spend some time with you.
Thank you so much. And again, please bring back more authors for me. I'd love to hear them.
I'll check it out.
Thank you.
All right.